Hello all, this is Alexander Elise. I have in front of you a Storyboard bank application. So we're just going to zoom in here and I'm going to demonstrate some user processes, different methods that the user can take, and ways that this bank application called Saves, can be used. So when this application is loaded and opened up, you'd be greeted with this login screen, which would prompt you for your user ID and password. You could then either enter that, or if you had forgot your credentials, this would allow you to go to Forgot Credentials, and then you could proceed. We'll just say, oh, okay, clicked Forgot Credentials, and then we'd be greeted with this screen next, which would prompt you again for either for both email and password. And then you'd either be able to click Submit, which would take you to this screen. Password user ID has been emailed. Or you could continue on here with this second button that would say Forgot Password. We would then be prompted with the email prompt again and the secret question or ID input, which would then allow us to submit, and then we'd be brought up to the password/user ID has been emailed screen, which would appear and then disappear, and you'd be either brought back to the credential screen or the bank here once that had been inputted. We could then see that we'll follow a process of logging in which case you would log in with your user ID and password. You would click login. Then this would be prompted with the bank. Screen is called the bank, and you would see your checking account, savings account, and you'd have the swipeable menu icon here, in which case you could swipe from the left. This would bring you to this screen here that shows you all your different options that you have. You have the bank, which is the screen that it's currently on, pay bill, pay card, deposit, transfer, stats, history, find. If we were perhaps to go through the pay bill process, we could click the pay bill, which would take us to this next screen here, pay bill screen. We would be greeted with the amount due, total balance, pay, which has the enter amount prompt, and submit. We could then go through the process as a user and see, okay, there's 100 amount due for this month, obviously, and then the total balance that is still needing to be paid. We could enter in our amount, say 205, submit. Either this screen, which is congratulations, your payment was successful, or if something perhaps went wrong, we have these arrows going in both directions showing us that unfortunately your payment was unsuccessful. Either of the two options could potentially happen, in which case after these alert screens displayed, you'd be transferred back to the bank section screen. So this is just back where we can see an overview of our accounts. And at any point you can see that icon is up in the top left corner that has the swipeable menu, so you could take yourself to anywhere in the application at any point. So let's go through another process here. Pay card. If we were perhaps to hit pay card, we'd be taken to the pay card screen, which looks very similar to the screen above. Has actually the same alerts that would be used, and then basically the same process that would take you back to the bank screen. As a user, you would see, okay, amount is due on my card, 35, total balance is due, and okay, let's see, pay, and enter the amount, 35, you could enter, and then you'd be able to submit, and then you'd be greeted with either of these two screens and then taken back to your the bank screen. So we have a couple other processes here, options in this app that we could go over, which we'll do next, which is deposit and transfer. So if we were to click deposit, we'd be taken to the deposit screen, which would allow us to deposit a check using the camera functionality of the device. You could then at this point, you would be able to see the check or wherever the phone was being aimed at. We would click the camera icon at the bottom. This would then bring us to the next screen, and we'd be taken to an overview of the check, and we'd be able to see and confirm the check amount. We can enter the check amount and then submit. This would then greet us with these two screens, very similar to the ones above. Congratulations, your transaction was successful. Unfortunately, your transaction was unsuccessful. This then would take you back to the bank home main menu area. If perhaps you did the transfer option, you'd be taken to the transfer screen, which in this case, you'd have the ability to click here on this drop down, and you would be able to choose between your personal accounts, or you could enter your account number and send that finances to another account. And then at this point down here, you would have the option to obviously enter in the amount that you would like to transfer. Upon submitting, you'd be taken to these alert screens that would either alert you or inform you whether your transaction was successful or unsuccessful, and you'd be directed back to the bank home screen. Say that we wanted to go into see some stats or history, we could click on either of the two there, and we'd be brought to the stats screen, which would give us an overview of our account. You can see that all this is pretty detailed here. You would have the ability to see your monthly savings and how that was affected, and the cash balance and the cash flow and whatnot of every month for that year. We can also go back to the bank, the main menu portion, by clicking this at the bottom or swiping from the left and then choosing that. Another screen to go to, so perhaps we swipe from the left and we choose to enter the history section, which would take us then to this screen. And in this section, we would see all the histories of our transactions. You could see, recent purchases such as Starbucks, hardware, Ace Hardware, Fry's, with the dates of those, and then the amount spent, and then the total of your account total there. And you could obviously swipe up and down to see the different amounts. As you can see, there's it's a scrollable there. And perhaps you want to swipe and you wanted to actually find a bank because you wanted to go talk to them about one of your transactions, or just make an in-bank deposit of some sort for cash or the like. You could then swipe to the left, click on Find, which would bring you to the Find screen, and this would show you, based on your GPS location, the closest banks and ATMs. You would have a preview of where that ATM or bank is located, and then some description defining whether it's a bank or an ATM or its distance. You'd then click on this, which would take you to your map application, and then you could direct yourself from there to find how to get to the bank. This is my overview of the storyboard here, which you can see all the screens. And this saves the bank app. Hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know in the comments what you think.